Well, we heard how worried some of you are, and what kind of conversations are you having in your house about what is going on in Ukraine, about the war in Europe? I know my children have already been reading things on social media, asking questions about what might happen next, and it can be bewildering for all of us to know quite what to say during a time of such uncertainty. And here to help us navigate that is Professor Sam Was, who's a child psychologist. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor Was. How do we talk about what's going on without unduly frightening our kids?
Yeah, it's a really tough thing. I think the first thing to say is I think you should talk. These things definitely spread around the playground. There's always one child who's, had the TV on at home. They've heard their parents discuss it, and children talk to other children about things. I think this is an area where child-on-child communication is important. I've seen that a lot. That children talking to each other about what happened can help them, can be a really important part of processing something like this. But it's also definitely a place where we want to be controlling the message, where we want to be talking to our own children, making sure that they know, what the really important key facts are. So definitely something to talk about to your child. In terms of how you actually talk about them, I think it varies a lot, between the ages of the children. You want to be talking about it in different ways to different aged children. I think for everybody, we want to be starting from empathy. What would it feel like to be in that situation? This is something, that's part of a lot of history lessons now. And I think it's really, really important, what would we be like in this, what would it feel like for us if we were in that situation? That can be quite an intense process. I've just been talking to a friend of mine who was doing exactly that with his 11-year-old over breakfast this morning. She burst into tears. It's an intense thing for a lot of children to be realizing, but I think that's really, really important, as a starting point.
Yeah, that's a really important point. My son Sam said last night, am I going to be conscripted into the army? He's 15. And I think that point you make about making sure it's factual, because they'll be picking up information from everywhere, is key. Where do they go to get their facts? How do we know that they're not picking up stuff that isn't true or is frightening them?
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think one thing that's really, really important, and definitely this would be my second key message to younger children, would be, for a younger child, their first thought will naturally go to themselves and their own feelings of safety. So the most important single fact to get across, to any child, but particularly a younger child, is, the chance of this spreading to the UK really, really are very low. This is something terrible. A lot of children in Ukraine are really going to be suffering. And that's something we should be, thinking about and, really kind of trying hard to imagine, but also to remind ourselves that, this is something that is quite a long way away, and the chances of you actually physically getting into danger are very, very low. So that's probably where I'd stop with talking about it with a younger child. This is tough for the children of Ukraine, but it doesn't apply, to us. With an older child, I think they're also going to be interested in, what we call self-actualization. What can you do to try to make the world a better place? And here I think the key message that we should be getting across to children is we can do something. A lot of the research, on how children cope with stressful situations, with children as with adults, actually is very important to feel that you can do something to change. So if you're talking about it to an older child, a really, really important message to get across is we're really feeling for the Ukrainian children at the moment, and this is what we can do to help them. We can be putting together food parcels, going in to help in that type of way. But that feeling that this is tough, but what we do makes a difference is really, really important.
Professor Sam Was, thank you so much. Some really good advice there on what we can talk